Due to recent events, discussions about Iran have become increasingly popular around the world. But do you actually know what medieval Iran was like? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. But before we begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Medieval Iran is a story of powerful empires, brilliant scholars, great cities, and dramatic political changes. For centuries, the lands of Persia stood at the crossroads of civilizations. Trade routes connecting east and west passed through this region, allowing goods, ideas, religions, and technologies to travel between Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. Because of this strategic position, Iran became one of the most influential cultural centers of the medieval world. At the beginning of the medieval period, the region was ruled by the powerful Sasanian Empire. The Sasanians governed vast territories stretching from Mesopotamia to Central Asia. Their empire was one of the most sophisticated political systems of its time. They built large cities, developed complex administrative structures, and maintained a powerful military. Their capital, Ctesiphon, located near modern-day Baghdad, was considered one of the largest and richest cities of the ancient world. The Sasanian rulers followed the ancient religion of Zoroastrianism, which had been an important spiritual tradition in Persia for centuries. Fire temples were built across the empire, and Zoroastrian priests held an important role in society. Persian culture during this time was deeply connected to traditions that stretched back to earlier empires like the Achaemenids. However, the 7th century brought dramatic changes. The rapid expansion of the early Islamic caliphates reached the borders of the Sasanian Empire. After a series of major battles, including the famous Battle of Al-Qadisiyah, the Sasanian state collapsed. By the middle of the 7th century, the territories of Persia had been incorporated into the rapidly growing Islamic world. This moment marked one of the most significant turning points in Iranian history. Over time, Islam gradually spread across the region. While the political structure changed, Persian culture did not disappear. Instead, it adapted and began influencing the Islamic civilization that had conquered it. Many Persian administrators and scholars became important figures in the new Islamic governments. They helped build administrative systems, translate ancient knowledge, and contribute to the intellectual life of the Islamic world. This period eventually became known as part of the Islamic Golden Age. Science and philosophy flourished during this time. Scholars from Persian lands made groundbreaking discoveries in mathematics, medicine, astronomy, and chemistry. One of the most famous scholars of this era was Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna. His work, The Canon of Medicine, became one of the most influential medical texts in history and remained widely used in both the Islamic world and Europe for centuries. Another famous scholar was al-Khwarizmi. His work on mathematics laid the foundation for algebra. In fact, the word algorithm, which is essential to modern computing and technology, comes from the Latinized form of his name. These achievements show just how influential the intellectual environment of medieval Persia was. Persian literature also entered a golden age. Around the year 1000, the poet Ferdowsi completed the Shahnameh, or the Book of Kings. This monumental epic poem contains over 50,000 lines and tells the legendary story of Persia's rulers, heroes, and mythical past. The Shahnameh preserved ancient Persian history and mythology and played a major role in strengthening the Persian language and cultural identity. During this time, various regional dynasties began to rule different parts of Iran. One of the most important was the Samanid dynasty in the 9th and 10th centuries. The Samanids strongly promoted Persian culture, education, and literature. Their courts attracted poets, philosophers, and scientists from across the region. Later, a powerful Turkic dynasty known as the Seljuks emerged in the 11th century. The Seljuk Empire became one of the dominant powers of the Middle East. Even though the Seljuk rulers were originally nomadic warriors from Central Asia, they adopted many Persian traditions of government and culture. Under Seljuk rule, Persian cities expanded and became major cultural centers. One of the most famous cities was Isfahan. Travelers described it as a magnificent city filled with markets, gardens, mosques, libraries, and schools. The famous phrase, Isfahan is half the world, later became associated with its beauty and cultural importance. Trade also played a crucial role in medieval Iran's prosperity. Persian merchants traveled along the Silk Road, connecting China, India, Central Asia, and the Mediterranean. These routes carried silk, spices, metals, precious stones, textiles, and many other goods. Along the roads, caravanserais were built to provide shelter for traders and travelers. These caravanserais were more than just resting places. They were hubs of communication where merchants exchanged news, ideas, and cultural influences from distant parts of the world. Through these connections, Persia became a meeting point for many different cultures. However, the prosperity of the region faced a serious challenge in the 13th century when the Mongol armies invaded the Middle East. The Mongol conquests were among the most destructive events in medieval history. Many cities across Persia were destroyed, agricultural lands were devastated, and large populations were displaced. At first, the Mongol invasion caused enormous damage to the region's economy and cultural institutions. Libraries were destroyed, and many scholars fled or were killed. For a time, it seemed as though the intellectual life of Persia might never recover. Yet history once again showed the resilience of Persian culture. The Mongol rulers who eventually governed the region formed a state known as the Ilkhanate. Over time, these rulers adopted Persian administrative systems, embraced local traditions, and eventually converted to Islam. Under their rule, Persian culture began to revive. Art, architecture, and literature flourished once again. Beautiful mosques, gardens, and palaces were built throughout the region. Persian miniature paintings became highly detailed artistic works illustrating scenes from poetry, court life, and history. Poetry continued to play a central role in Persian culture. During this later medieval period, some of the most famous poets in world history emerged. Rumi wrote mystical poetry that explored spirituality and the search for meaning in life. Sa'di wrote philosophical and moral stories in works such as the Gulistan and Bustan. Hafez created lyrical poetry that is still widely quoted in Persian-speaking cultures today. Medieval Iranian architecture also became famous for its beauty and complexity. Architects designed large domes, intricate tile patterns, and elegant courtyards that reflected both artistic creativity and advanced engineering knowledge. Many mosques built during the medieval period still stand today and attract visitors from around the world. Cities were carefully organized with markets, bathhouses, gardens, mosques, and residential districts. Public baths, known as hammams, played an important role in everyday social life. People gathered there not only for hygiene but also for conversation and relaxation. Another fascinating part of medieval Iranian life was its system of water management. In many regions, engineers built underground channels known as qanats. These systems transported water from mountain aquifers to cities and agricultural lands across long distances. Some qanats stretched for tens of kilometers underground and allowed settlements to survive in extremely dry environments. Agriculture flourished thanks to these water systems. Farmers grew crops such as wheat, barley, pomegranates, dates, grapes, and saffron. Persian gardens became famous for their beauty and symbolic meaning. Carefully designed layouts combined water channels, trees, flowers, and shaded walkways to create peaceful spaces that reflected ideas of paradise. Music and storytelling were also important parts of Persian cultural life. Traveling storytellers entertained audiences in markets and caravanserais by reciting epic poems, historical tales, and legendary adventures. These performances helped preserve cultural memory and connect generations through shared stories. By the late medieval period, Persia had developed a complex cultural identity shaped by centuries of interaction between different civilizations. Elements from ancient Persian traditions, Islamic culture, Central Asian influences, and even Mongol customs blended together to create something unique. This long history explains why Iran remains one of the most culturally rich regions in the world. Its poetry, art, architecture, and intellectual traditions have influenced societies far beyond its borders. And when we look back at this long and complex past, it raises an interesting question about the present. How did a region that once stood at the center of science, trade, and cultural exchange evolve into the modern country we know today? What historical forces shaped the political and social structure of modern Iran? Was it religion, geopolitics, foreign intervention, or internal political changes that played the biggest role? Write your opinion in the comments below. I'd really like to hear your thoughts and start a discussion about how history continues to shape the modern world. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more historical stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.